Granted. Call the member for Wagga Wagga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I rise to make a brief contribution to this in support of the motion. I'd like to congratulate the Minister for bringing this motion and congratulate him on his appointment. I'd also like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands from which I live, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging there, and also acknowledge that I am not speaking for them. I'm making a brief contribution to this debate, but not in any way wanting to subvert their right to make their own contribution and run their own affairs. The situation of First Nations people in this country is absolutely unique. They were the custodians of the land when Europeans arrived, the oldest continuous culture on this planet, 65,000 years at least. But since colonisation, of course, they have been grievously afflicted, and our attempts to rectify that situation have to this day, despite all best efforts, we would have to say, have been inadequate. The member for Gosford outlined in her speech many of the areas, but the fact that there are still 43% of children out of home care from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander background is an instance that we've done nothing, in a sense, to manage the stolen generation and improve that situation. So that's the situation, that is the context, and the question then is, what would a voice to the federal parliament do to help that situation? I believe it is an important step, and I support this motion. And I want to address three objections to it in speaking in support. People say to me, well, it's just symbolic. They say it won't make a difference. And they'll say, why do we need to put it in the Constitution? And I want to just address those three and turn those around in a positive way. Well, first of all, they were the custodians of the land when we arrived. We have previously believed that they should have constitutional recognition. I think this is the way to do it, to enshrine a voice in the Constitution. It's not just symbolic, it will be practical. The second point is, people say to me, why it could just be a symbol, this will just be symbolic. And to that I say this, symbols are important. There wouldn't be a religious community in this country that wouldn't have symbols that are fundamental to it. I know the Welcome to Country has been an important part in the last 20 years of our civic life, and I believe it has changed our attitudes. So symbols are important. There wouldn't be a football code in this country, doesn't compete for a premiership trophy, and they don't win that trophy so they've got something to drink out of. They win that trophy because it is a symbol. So symbols are important, they change our lives. So let's not ever debase the value of symbols, and this is a powerful symbol, but I also believe it is practical. And why do I say that? I've worked in the bureaucracy for many years, and now I guess I'm part of the democratic process that tries to keep bureaucracy accountable. The bureaucracy of government is well-meaning, and it's often very effective, but it does not operate at its best unless it has democratic oversight. Simple fact. For all the well-meaning nature of bureaucrats, at the end of the day, it's this institution and the institutions of democracy that keep bureaucracy accountable. And sadly, I think some of the lack of outcomes we've had in attempting to address the issues of our First Nations people come from the fact that they do not have democratic input into the bureaucracy that's attempting to solve their solutions. And I believe that a voice to Parliament will provide just that democratic accountability. After all, it's why we are here. It's one of the great things about our society that we will hold bureaucracy to account. And I believe the situation with our First Nations people is that they do not have that authority and power yet, and a voice to Parliament will provide them and enable our bureaucracy to be its best self in addressing the issues of First Nations people. I note that this Friday, May 26th, is Sorry Day, and I'm truly honoured to be able to say a few words at the Wagga Wagga Sorry Day event at the Sorry Rock on Wiradjuri land. Stolen generation, I said earlier, is one of the terrible examples of what happens when government does not listen and bureaucracy imposes its own will and agenda on First Nations people. So I support this motion because I support the importance of symbols, and I support the importance of bureaucracy and democratic accountability, and I think that will go a long way to addressing the issues of First Nations people. Thank you.